out right off top saying that we're going to talk about Revelation. I'll tell you why. But the book of Revelation in the Bible. And not only are we going to talk about it in this video, but we're going to talk about it for several Sundays to come. So if you're a person who you really want God to destroy many of the people on earth and all of the animals, you're not going to enjoy this. If you really are hoping that the book of Revelation is an explanation of what is going to happen at the end of time, this is not for you. If you're hoping to hear something very similar to the Left Behind series, you're not going to like this. So just right up front, I want to say that, if that's your view, that's okay. There are plenty of churches that you can go and hear that. This is something different. And so if you're not looking for something different than that, you're not going to like this at all. Now, if you're hoping to hear something different, then maybe you might like this. And I want to say the reason that I'm doing this is that back, I don't remember if it was maybe October or November, I did a sermon on just a couple of verses in the book of Revelation. And at the time we had a group that was meeting later in the week to discuss the sermon. And the people who were in that sermon discussion group said, we'd really love to hear more from you on the book of Revelation. This was very different than stuff that we've heard growing up or that we've heard before, and we really appreciated it. And we're hoping that you can do some more on Revelation. And so I promised that I would do that. And, but I couldn't do it right away because Advent and then Christmas and Epiphany happened. And so I was looking at the calendar, and coming up at the beginning of Lent, which starts in February, I want to do the whole of Lent. I want to do this sermon series on African American spirituals. And I had already planned on doing that. So I thought, okay, between now and Lent, I can do however many Sundays I want to do on the book of Revelation. And I don't have it mapped out yet, so I don't know, how many Sundays I want to do it. Just know that it's going to be more than one. So I had planned on doing it, and I promised people that I would do it. And then this potential ice storm started coming up, and we started talking about how it might be really difficult for people to get to church on Sunday. And I didn't want to just not do anything. I wanted to introduce the book of Revelation because that's what I'm going to be talking about for the next, who knows, 2-3 Sundays, I'm not sure. So this is going to be a video that for the most part just kind of introduces the book of Revelation and maybe gets you excited about hearing more about it and, thinking a little bit differently about it. So I thought, let's just put the sermon up front, or me talking about the sermon up front, and then some music at the end. And the music is going to be provided by Barry. And speaking of Barry, Barry's like a huge attraction at our church. Barry and Sarah are two musicians that everybody loves. But Barry is the one that is with us most of the time because he's, I guess, the more full-time musician. And Barry's a huge attraction at our church. It's like Barry and Jesus. So it's like to the point to where people are like, oh, hi, Pastor Amy. Is that Barry? Like, Barry is so well loved in our church. And Barry and I grew up in very different traditions. So I grew up Presbyterian, and my experience of learning about the book of Revelation is very different from Barry's experience. And I think Barry's experience is closer to what most people experienced, or at least hear about when they hear about or think about the book of Revelation. So I thought, it might be cool as like part of the sermon to do a Zoom call with Barry and check in and kind of see what he remembers from his childhood learning about Revelation and kind of what his thoughts are on it and if there's anything that he's interested in hearing about. So that's what we are going to start with, is as kind of part of the sermon, is me having a little conversation with Barry. I've edited our Zoom conversation down just for time. But speaking of that, I'm just going to highly edit this whole video for time. So let's jump right in now to the conversation that I had with Barry. So we grew up with completely different experiences of the book of Revelation.
It sounds like it. I thought everybody felt like I did.
So can you tell me, like, just in a nutshell, what you remember from when you were growing up? Like what the kind of message of Revelation was?
Revelation to me was scary because it talked about end times, and the end times were scary. It talked about Armageddon, and it talked about all these colored horses coming into town, and each one of them represented something that was vengeful almost. That's my perception. Everything was they're out to get you, and if you're not a Christian, then you're in bad shape. There could be, according to who you talk to, it could be 1,000 years of horribleness, or it could, or if you were a Christian, you could already be taken away, and then you've left behind all the people that are going to suffer through all that. So it was, to me, it was scary, and it didn't make me feel very hopeful of a future. And I had a Sunday school teacher who was convinced it was going to happen in the next couple of years, and portrayed that to us through movies and books, and to the point that I didn't even plan much into my future because I was convinced there wasn't going to be a future. So Revelation is just scary to me. I don't like it. So it changed my mind.
You still don't like it now?
Not really, because I haven't studied it. All I have in my mind is what I was taught when I was a kid. I haven't really studied it since then. I would have to go back. I mean, all my information came from a Sunday school teacher.
Okay.
And then cherry picked verses that came out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I do think everybody can agree it's hard to understand.
Right.
I think, I shouldn't say everybody, most people would agree that it's difficult to read. I think that most people would agree, I might even go as far as to say that most people would agree that it's symbolism that needs to be interpreted.
I think you're right, yes.
Yeah. But then, like, how you interpret it is where we start going in some pretty different directions.
Right. I don't think you can just pick it up and go, oh, I see exactly what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So I have a story to tell you.
Okay.
Couple days ago, I needed gas before school. So I pulled into the QT in Elgin, and I parked at the gas tank. And it's pretty busy in the morning, like as people are going to and from work and school. And so there was, not very many like stations open. So I found one and pulled into it. And then the kids were like, can we get a drink? Can we get a snack? And so I sent them on in, and I was like, I'll be in a minute. And I pumped my gas. And then when I finished pumping my gas, I, like, boop, boop, my car, and started walking in to the QT. And there was a large truck, I think maybe an 18-wheeler, parked right next to the building. And he honked at me when I was walking. And I was like, whatever. And then he honked again. And I went like this. I went, like, I'm not interested in you, like that. and I kept walking, and he kind of like honked again. And so then I looked at him, and he was like pointing at my car. So then I thought, oh, I wonder if someone got in my car and hid in the back seat. because when I was a kid, there was all these stories, like, probably not true, but about like how the Bloods and the Crips would like do initiations where they'd like sneak into these stories?
I know those stories.
Okay.
There's some I still, that some of them where they were hiding under cars, and it
Yes.
would hurt your legs and stuff. I still think about that the other day. I was like, I got in my car real quick because of it.
Yeah. Yes. So this story
Right,
going around, like back when I was a kid, and
right,
I'm glad that you know the stories because when I told Chris, my husband, about this, he was like,
right.
"What?" Like he didn't know any of it. And
Oh
so,
yeah, and I still to this day when I get in my car, I take my hand and I sweep the back to make sure there's nobody in the back seat. Every time I get in the car.
okay. So I was like, maybe somebody jumped in there, and he's like warning me. So then he's like, he's pointing. And so then I took a few, like I was far enough to where I couldn't hear him. His window was open, but I couldn't hear him. So I got closer, not all the way, but closer to his truck so that I could hear him. And he goes, "You're parked where the diesel is and I need gas. Can you move your car?" And I was like, "Oh, sure." Also, were you attracted to me or? So I'm telling this story to my husband, and I didn't even get to the entire story. All I
Right.
got to was I was walking in and the guy honked at me, and Chris goes, "Oh, did he want you to move your car because he needed gas?" And
Did not say
like,
that.
yeah, I was like, "Well, that's presumptuous." And he goes, "So your line of thinking is this: honk, oh, this guy is attracted to me. Honk, oh, is someone in my car gonna murder me?" And I was like, well, when you put it that way, it does sound a little off.
Right.
Okay, but here's the reason why I'm bringing it up. Because we were both in the same parking lot in the same city. We both speak the same language. We both live in the same decade.
Okay.
We by the looks of him, we were both about the same age. And I did not know what he was trying to say to me.
There you go. Right. Based on what your past was. So.
Yes, because I had certain things that were already in my brain that I didn't even know were in there that I remembered. And so, like, I just thought, what a funny story to bring up because the same can be said for like reading the Bible. This
Oh
was
yeah.
written 2,000 years ago by someone who speaks a completely different language, who's in a completely different context in a completely different part of the world. Of course, we're going to not know everything, you know?
Right. That's true.
So
Yeah.
so we have to have Bible scholars and historians help take apart some of what might be happening there.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting. That's very good.
Yeah.
I'm
So
interested to see what's going to happen in these stories.
me too,
So,
because I don't have it planned yet.
well, I've just heard so many. There's so many things. That whole Antichrist 666, all that stuff is in there. That's scary too. So,
Yes. I can talk about the 666 a little bit.
so I really want to know what that's all about.
Okay.
The mark
So
of the beast. Yeah.
I'll tell you what I think it's about. So,
Okay.
um, so this was written, as far as we can tell, around the year 95, what we call Common Era, 95 CE,
Right.
by someone who claims to be named John and probably is named John because it was like a super common name. And
Mm-hmm.
we call him John of Patmos because he says he's writing from the island of Patmos, where he had been exiled. And he was writing to 7 churches, a vision or a dream that he had. And it's pretty clear that he's not happy with what with the direction these 7 churches are going in, and he,
Right. Right.
just straighten up because otherwise it's going to be bad. Um, but also at the time the Roman Empire was he would have considered the Roman Empire his enemy. They were the dominant force in the region, and the people who were on the fringes of society, or the people who were poor, or the people who were Christian, were not being treated well by the Roman Empire.
Okay.
And at the time, the emperor was Nero. And so at some point in the book of Revelation, it says that there's a, I'm doing all this from memory, so now I don't remember all the specifics, but it says that there, I think it's called like a beast that rises up out of the sea. It never actually says Antichrist in the book of Revelation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I do remember the beast now that you say that.
Yeah, it says that an Antichrist is the term that comes from other parts of the Bible, but it never actually says the word Antichrist in Revelation.
Right.
There's a beast that comes out of the sea at some point, and at some point, John is saying, what is that? Or who is that? And there's an angel that's standing nearby ready to explain. The number of this beast is 666. And essentially the letters of the name of the person will add up to be 666. And at the time, Kaiser Nero, the letters of the name would add up to be 666.
And Jimmy Carter too, if you didn't know.
And Ronald Reagan.
And Ronald Reagan, okay. I just remembered Jimmy Carter was there when I was a kid. Oh, all those letters, that's 6 letters in his name.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, it's based on, I'm pretty sure it's based on the Hebrew alphabet, not the Greek alphabet.
That would make way more sense, yeah.
Yeah, but I can't remember why it would have been the Hebrew instead of the Greek alphabet, but anyway, the like letter A, the equivalent to A was number 1, and the equivalent to B was number 2, and so forth. And
I
so
see.
Spelled out Kaiser Nero, and then added up the numbers. Then it added up to 666. And the interesting thing about that is that there's some manuscripts of Revelation, ancient manuscripts that have been found, where it says 666, and there's other manuscripts where it says 616.
Interesting.
It has something to do with the fact that you could spell Kaiser Nero's name Nero or Neron, and depending on which way you spelled it, it was either 616 or 666.
Okay.
So he's very upset about Rome. He's very upset about Nero. And he's envisioning that the end of Rome is coming soon, and that the Christians are going to inherit the Golden City.
Got it. We didn't, like I said, we never went into detail, but we sure watched a lot of movies that saw the rapture and people drive. I don't know. Do you know who? Let me think of that newscaster. There was a famous newscaster at that time, and they used him in the movie, so it made it seem really real.
Oh.
And he was on there saying people have, were driving down the street, and all of a sudden they're not driving their cars anymore, and the car's wrecked, and we don't know what happened, and why would they disappear like this? And people are in just in a plane, and the pilot disappeared, and it was a terrible movie. That
it's attractive to be able to predict what's going to happen, because then you have some control.
Sure.
Fear cells and self-preservation cells.
What do you mean by that one, self-preservation?
This idea of if you know what's going to happen, then you can plan to save yourself.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. It's just also that, they're going to get it in the end.
Yes, like retribution. Yes.
I don't like that either.
Yeah. So all that
things I do not like, because it's just like, that's not what this is all about.
Yeah, that's
okay. I win and you don't, and mine's forever great and yours is forever horrible.
Yes.
That just bothers me.
That stuff is attractive, and I think that attracts people.
A lot of people.
I don't think it's the message. And it's
Yeah.
certainly not the message of the Gospels.
Yeah, I agree. That's why it bothers me so much.
But there definitely is, like, you're totally right. It is scary. There's lots of violence in it. There's lots of retaliatory thinking.
And it's
Um,
been used to scare people a lot. And
yes.
I'm not going to say my religion again, but some denominations do that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's just too many good people in our world, like Buddhists and Muslims and uh, whatever else. They're, Hindu. I have a lot of Hindu friends. How can I say that it's only my way? And how can I say that because I was born in America and that's the way I was taught, and you were born in India and that's the way you were taught. And so you go to hell and I go to heaven. Sorry. Those kind of things just conflict me constantly. Not constantly, but I do think about it a lot. I have a lot of friends from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
They have a lot of different beliefs. They're not evil people. That's one thing. I think that
Well, there's how does John 3:16 go? For God so loved
the
the
love of
world.
the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life.
And then after that,
Yeah, that one I never can remember. The verse right after that I can't remember because that wasn't drilled in our head. Because the next one was always kind of not the opposite, but it kind of conflicted a little bit. I
so
always thought.
John 3:16, let me pull it up here. Bibles are so small. I
I
mean,
know what
writing.
letter, right?
For God did not send his son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through him. Not to condemn, but to save. And then a little bit later, I think it's John 10. Um, Jesus says, I have sheep not of this fold. Do you remember that?
No, but I sure do like it.
Yeah.
I'm not. Nobody's ever pointed. I'm just telling you. I grew up with cherry picked lessons. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so that just changed my whole perspective of stuff right there. Just that one verse. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
That
tons of
makes
stuff
sense.
like that in here. But
I know, but yeah. Well, that's just fun. Oh my goodness.
thanks for doing this.
You're welcome.
Okay, I want to say a couple things about Revelation just before we end. And one is about why the book of Revelation is so popular, particularly in certain groups. And sometimes it even feels like maybe there's certain parts of the population, the Christian population, that feel that we need to pay the most attention to Revelation compared to the rest of the Bible. And I think Barry and I talked about some of the reasons why some may feel that Revelation is very attractive, like the compulsion for self-preservation, or how fear is a motivating factor for a lot of people and stuff like that. But I was also thinking about just how sort of artistic the book of Revelation is. And then I found this little foreword, just a couple of paragraphs written by somebody named Amir Hussein, which I don't even know who that is. And I don't know that I'm pronouncing the name correctly either. But what Amir Hussein said is that they weren't Christian. They had never read any part of the Bible. They weren't familiar with Revelation, but they were taking a class, and the professor showed a picture by William Blake titled The Great Red Dragon and the Woman Clothed with the Sun. And that the professor mentioned how this is this artist's interpretation of Revelation 12. And Amir Hussein was hooked and wanted to know more. They went on to say that if you start reading the beginning of the gospel, which is the book of Matthew, it's not a great hook for anyone who's never read it before, who's not a Christian. It's just sort of like a genealogy. But if you start with Revelation 12, which is what what they did. It's a big hook, because here's the way that Amir Hussein describes it. In heaven, a woman is pregnant, and a giant dragon whose tail sweeps a full third of the stars out of the sky is waiting to eat her child. All of that action occurs in the first 4 lines of the chapter. I was hooked, even before I got to the 7th line in the chapter about the war in heaven, where the dragon somehow has angelic helpers in his battle, along with the archangel Michael. Reading Revelation 12 got me interested in reading the whole book, which in turn inspired my interest in taking a course on the New Testament. And from there, I did a PhD in the study of religion, which led to my first job teaching at the University of Los Angeles. So just this idea that not only is fear a great motivator, but so is art. And Revelation can really kind of pull you in a different way because of the sort of artistic, poetic nature of the images and the words. And I hope to focus on that during the Revelation series, on that kind of imagery. The other thing I want to say is that, just like I was talking about with Barry, there's some other kind of running themes throughout the book of Revelation that are more uncomfortable. There's definitely, the violence aspect. I remember one of my New Testament professors used to say, like, when Christ showed up in Revelation, he used to think, what did they do to Jesus in heaven? Because this is not gentle Jesus. It's, Jesus shows up in Revelation with like fiery eyes and a sword in his mouth and is, wanting to slaughter people. So it's very different imagery than what we're used to from the rest of the New Testament. So even though some of those things are in there, and I'm not going to pretend like they're not or try to sugarcoat them, the overarching message is that this was written during a time of great trial to a group of people who were in a very terrible place. These people were hurting, these people were being persecuted, these people were suffering. And so this is an overarching message of hope to people who are suffering. And it can be the same thing for us today. It can be a message of hope for personal suffering in our lives, for suffering in our city, in our nation, in our world. It can speak to us in a similar way. And at the end of the story, there's this idea that there's always kind of a battle between what is holy and what is evil. And that in the end, what is holy is going to be triumphant. And so it is overarchingly a message of hope for the people at the time and for us. And so I asked Barry to select a song that has a theme of hope for us to sing. And he selected a great song that I think goes really well with the overarching message of Revelation. So we're going to sing that now. Before we sing the song, I forgot to say, if you are able to help with an offering of some kind today, we would greatly appreciate it. We run on the donations of people who attend our church. And when we don't have church, it hurts us financially. So if you're able to give via PayPal or Venmo, I'll put that information up on the screen and I'll put it up at the end of the video as well. Obviously, donations are not required. We know that's just not a possibility for everybody, but we always say that there's something in your life that you can offer to someone, even if it's not money to our church. And so we hope that you're inspired to offer something in the name of Christ to someone this week. And now let's sing our song.
Light dawns on a weary world, the eyes begin to see all people's dignity. Light dawns on a weary world, the promised day of justice comes. The trees shall clap their hands, the dry lands gush with spring. The hills and mountains shall break forth with singing. We shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace, as all the world in wonder echoes shalom. Love grows in a weary world when hungry hearts find bread and children's dreams are fed. Love grows in a weary world. The promised feast of plenty comes. The trees shall clap their hands, the dry lands gush with spring. The hills and mountains shall break forth with singing. We shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace, and all the world in wonder echoes shalom. Hope blooms in a weary world when creatures once forlorn find wilderness reborn. Hope blooms in a weary world. The promised green of Eden comes. The trees shall clap their hands, the dry lands gush with spring. The hills and mountains shall break forth in singing. We shall go out in joy and be led forth in peace, and all the world in wonder echoes shalom. May the God of hope go with us every day, filling all our lives with love and joy and peace. May the God of justice speed us on our way, bringing light and hope to every land and race. Praying, let us work for peace, singing, share our joy with all, working for a world that's new, faithful when we hear Christ call. May the God of hope go with us every day, filling all our lives with love and joy and peace. May the God of justice meet us on our way,